Hey friends, it's that time again. Kenny Jahng here with the Church Tech Today podcast. Really excited today because I've got someone that is, I would say, multidisciplinary in so many different areas that's going to have an intersection in terms of the conversation that we have here today. You might know my friend Clay Scroggins here. He's served as lead pastor over at Buckhead at North Point Ministries. And he's got tons of experience in Andy Stanley's world, that world-class organization, and he's developed his own teaching and in terms of the resources that he's providing leaders everywhere, I think is just amazing. So he's a sought-after speaker, leadership coach. Basically, from my point of view, he focuses on really practical and engaging approaches to elevating your own leadership. He's the author, I think, 3 books now. The last one I just love. Everyone has to get is How to Lead When You're Not in Charge. He's also got a podcast. So if you're listening to this as a podcast, you should hop over there right now. The How to Lead podcast is something you should actually smash that subscribe button and learn from him every time that he comes online. Clay, just welcome to the show.
Hey, thanks, Kenny. I definitely feel honored, but also a little bit of an imposter because you are such a guru to me. So to even be on the same pod, I'm dead serious. And the fact that I'm on a church tech podcast, friends that know me really well would probably laugh at that. I was actually, somebody was fixing, our air conditioner was broken. And the guy said something about, where's your so-and-so? And I said, hey, you're going to have to speak in layman's terms because I'm not super technical. And he said, you graduated from Georgia Tech and you're not super technical. But yeah, I have an engineering degree and I'm not super technical, but I do care deeply about the church and I care deeply about technology. So
yes,
excited about having this conversation.
Yeah, every time we sit down together, I think I learn from you. And I think I think that's the part that is interesting and I want to expose our audience to, is because you don't need to be a chip head, a techie, a nerd, in order to appreciate how to apply technology in today's ministry world in particular, and that's what we're talking about. Now, we are in a busy season. I feel like this year has gone by in terms of like turbo mode, and we're hearing still that term burnout, right? And so I wanted to talk to you about, from your point of view, because I think you have some unique perspectives of why are spiritual leaders, why are pastors still leaving the church at alarming rates? Like, what is it from your perspective that's really the trigger of that trend still happening?
I think, for one, being a pastor is just really, really hard.
Yeah.
The expectations now for a pastor, you are to be a theologian, you are to be a world-class communicator, you are expected to be an organizational expert on how to be the CEO or even COO or CIO of an organization, C-suite leader of an organization. You're supposed to be a cultural commentator. You're expected to be a social justice warrior and take up whatever crusade or whatever injustice that your community feels like is happening. And now on top of that, you've got this intense layer of technology of whether it's social media, whether it's your church app, whether it's online church, even Bible software, where you're now supposed to be conversant in that topic as well. So it's just becoming harder than ever to stay in the pastoral world, I would say. So the survey that Pushpay did on the state of the church for the last year, I thought what they found was I thought it was really insightful and really helpful to point out how overwhelmed leaders really do feel. So yeah, that is a relevant question, and it should be alarming to all of us who care about the local church.
Yeah. Now, I was listening recently to your discussion when you were on the Carey Nieuwhof podcast, and you did speak about those rapid changes that are confronting leaders today. And, this dynamic, that swift pace of both societal changes, technological changes, it's only getting faster, right? We are now in the age of AI, and this month, Siri just got an upgrade. ChatGPT is now integrated into Apple Intelligence, and I think that's just going to accelerate the adoption of AI even further. Technology, the promise is that it's supposed to help us, right? It's supposed to save time for us, etc. Um, can you comment on your perspective, like when you were in that leadership role in that church? Um, how can you think of tech actually adding to the cause of ministry versus, subtracting from it? Like, what would you do in terms of, are there specific practices that would help you understand how do we actually employ technology to help us, not versus us being a slave to technology?
Well, the most profound moment that I had in regard to technology helping us was I went to Dallas Theological Seminary, which is where I met my wife, which was I feel most grateful to Dallas Seminary for that. I was there to study theology, but met this girl, ended up studying her. Hey, I was in the program there. To get a master's in theology, you have to take uh, nine classes, nine language classes, so 27 hours of language. I again got an engineering degree in college, and so I think I might have had to take one semester of French just to like check a box. So I am not a foreign language. That's just not the way my brain works. So for me to take 5 semesters of Greek, 4 semesters of Hebrew was absolutely exhausting. I mean, it about did me in. I mean, it was for sure. I was just skating to get by. Like, what is the minimum level required to do this? So then, years later, I go back to school to do a DMin, a doctorate in ministry. And one of the classes that was being offered was called Computer Tools for Biblical Exegesis. Why they only offered it in the doctoral program, I do not know. But I'll never forget sitting there. It was a week-long class, one of those like immersive, you're there for 45 hours of the week, intensely involved with Logos at the time is what we were using. And about halfway through, it might not even have been halfway, it might have been after the first day, I immediately regretted taking the 27 hours of languages because of how easy the computer tools were. I just thought, why in the world did I waste that much time taking these language classes when we have these computer tools for biblical exegesis that are so efficient and so effective and so helpful? So I would say from just a studying for your sermon, I preach regularly at churches still. I do a lot of corporate speaking on some of the books I've written on leadership, but my involvement with the church, and not only attending our local church, but also preaching at churches. But the way that technology can help us prepare for sermons better and more efficiently, just with Bible software alone, is just tremendous. But
Yeah.
I would say thinking of it as the way there are people that we would never engage with as a church. There are ways that we would never be able to foster community like we can now because of technology. So to me, some of those additive things that really allow us to connect with more people and connect more with people,
Hmm.
the hours that are outside of the 1 hour that people spend in the church building, those are those are the positives. Those are the we have to appreciate, or we get to appreciate technology because of that. Those are the times when I certainly there are times when you think, gosh, this is just getting in the way and people are reverting to it too often or people are leveraging it too often. Sure, there are some challenges there, but in the end, it allows us to connect with more people and allows us to connect more with people. To me, that's why I appreciate uh, the opportunity that technology brings to us.
So in 2024, Pushpay came out with a state of church technology report. I was reading that the other day, and it points out some interesting like tensions or dynamics. Like it said, I think 45% of the pastors and church leaders responding like they're not confident in their ability to adapt the right tech solutions, right? So there's insecurity there, right? Like that this generation of leaders right now are almost paralyzed. It's 45%, it's almost half of them. And then at the same time, 55% of churches say that less than 10% of their operating budget is dedicated to tech. So like their behavior is following what they're feeling and seeing, right? And I think it was something enormous. Like 70% believe that the cost of technology is the biggest obstacle. Like that is the thing. It's budget, and yet they're feeling not confident. Um, How does someone overcome those obstacles in trying to move their ministry into a tech forward position? And I would say most of the people here are not necessarily the senior leader, right? The one with the actual end decision. What would your advice be in terms of how do you lead those efforts to get to a tech forward culture, but you're not in charge, right? Like, what would you do? Like, what's like a practical thing that would be encouraging for people here listening today?
Yeah, let me make a couple of comments about that. First of all, um, most pastors, I couldn't agree more with the response. I don't think that would be surprising to
Yeah.
any of us that almost half of the people that responded to the State of Church Technology report said that they weren't confident in their ability to adopt. Of course not, right? Because most people didn't get into ministry because of technology. They got into ministry, and then all of a sudden now this is thrust upon us, and we're going, oh, now I've got to figure out how do I become an expert on how to engage with people through technology. So I would just say eliminating the identifying in ourselves the myth or the lie that it is either in person or technology. I know you've had guests on your podcast that have talked about this plenty before. That it is not me against technology. It's not Sunday church against technology. No, we have to think of it as we're hoisting a sail, and there is a wind that's blowing, and the sail that we're hoisting is part of it is technology, part of it is what we do in person, but we've got to figure out, right? I lick my finger and hold it up to the wind. Where is the wind blowing? And then hoist the sail and put our winds at the back of that to be able to reach people, to be able to disciple people, to be able to mentor people. So I think as soon as we see technology as the enemy, we're losing, but seeing it as neutral. I mean, I'll never forget when I was a student, like a 15-year-old in the youth group that I grew up in. Our student pastor gave us a rock to keep. He said, I want you to keep this in your backpack, keep it in your cup holder if you have a car and can drive. But I want you to think about how neutral this rock is. This rock can be a vessel, a tool of damage. You could throw it at somebody and destroy
Mm.
somebody, or you could build something that would provide shelter for somebody. So it really is, it's all about whose hand is it in and how the person uses it. And as soon as we can think of technology in that way, I think we're better off for it. Secondly, when we feel the pressure to be the expert, we have to
Yeah.
borrow the skills of people that are in our church. I'll never forget during 2020, Cheryl Batchelder, former CEO of Popeyes, she's a part of our church and a remarkable leader. I had Cheryl come in and speak to our leadership team, and Cheryl said, everybody just was quickly asking her, here's the problem we have, here's the problem we have, here's the problem we have. And we asked her, what are you hearing on boards that you're on? And she said, too many boards think that they can solve every one of these problems with the people that are in the room. But the
Mm.
answers to the problems that you're solving are not in your boardroom. They are out in your congregation with your people. So the better you can do it, getting out there and listening to them, I would say the same is true for technology. The answer to this, the people that can help you are not the people sitting in your executive team. It is probably the people that are out in your church. So the more you are leveraging them,
Mhm.
listening to them, learning from them, the better off you'll be. You asked about what do you do when you're not in charge? I will make one comment to people who are in charge. I think it is imperative. It is remarkable how few churches do this. I'd be curious from your perspective if you've seen any churches do this. Why does every organization in the world have a seat at the executive table for the person responsible for technology, except churches? I've never seen a church do it, but every organization does it. Do you really think that Panera Bread Company would have an executive team that doesn't have a technology person at the table? They 100% wouldn't do it. And you could say, well, Panera is not in technology. No, we are all in technology. So until churches do it, until churches create a seat at the table for the technology person, I don't think we've done enough. So I would say that I know a lot of you maybe you're thinking, yeah, I agree with that. And there's nothing I can do about that. No, what you can do about it is you can become more literate. You can become a better learner. You can become a better listener, and you can have an argument that's framed, that's ready to go when the moment comes for you to advocate for the position, the technology position at the decision-making table. I think that's the best thing every one of us can do is not see our pastor as the enemy, not see technology as the enemy, but is how do I become an advocate, and how do I have an argument? How do I have a position that is hard to say no to? I think that's what every one of us can do a better job of.
I love it. I mean, actually, in your book, I remember, How to Lead When You're Not in Charge is a book everyone should pick up. But one of the things that I actually remember is you talking about how to create a culture of influence, right? Inspiring others to model the behavior that you want to see, even though you might not be the executive leader there, and always tapping, I think, collaboration and celebration of team wins and things like good behavior. You want to figure out how to become a cheerleader and advocate for that. And I think that's just one of those keys that I think is probably really helpful here.
Yeah, well, in that book, I start with the power of leading yourself. And
Yeah.
hey, we all go, the tendency in all of us is to go, oh, my boss is not this, or my boss is not that. My boss doesn't see technology the way he should, or the way she should. Of course not. They didn't get into it for that. But you've got to lead yourself, to put yourself in a position to get yourself ready. I mean, it's a little bit that First Peter thing, right? Like, be ready to give an answer for the hope that lies within you. Be ready to give an answer for the technology that lies in front of you. We probably all need to do as well. But I'd be curious, Kenny, from your point of view, have you seen a church that's put the person responsible, or the person that has the position of, the CIO person at the church? Have you ever seen a church that's put that person at the executive table?
I mean, I don't know of any specific explicit churches, but I would say that there are some digitally, almost like I would say digitally native churches that are feeling that. So, I served as a innovation pastor, right? A media and innovation pastor, not at the executive leadership level, but that signals that there is some priority and value.
We at least have the
Yeah.
position.
And then there's other churches like, Crossroads, Cincinnati, that
Yeah, I
has,
was thinking Crossroads as
right?
well.
They
Yeah.
have, I think, a dozen data scientists on their team, right? Like they literally are looking at what is actually working from an objective point of view, right? What you measure moves, and metrics are important, and talking that language is important. So I agree with you. I think your call here today in that one specific thing might be the biggest takeaway of this conversation today, that church leaders need to wake up and listen to if you're going to stay relevant in the future to the people, the culture that you're trying to actually reach. We need to figure out how to do that. Now,
Can I throw one other
Yeah.
anecdote out there?
Yeah.
Another really influential church member in our world in Atlanta is a guy named Frank Blake. Frank was the former CEO of Home Depot.
Yeah.
And I had Frank come and speak to our staff meeting numerous times, because he was at the time he's in his early 70s, but back then he was in his late 60s, and he was retired. He had just stepped down as the CEO. But
Yeah.
when this would have been probably 2007, 2008. So in the middle of the building crisis, in the middle of a massive recession, which obviously hit Home Depot drastically, he made this incredibly crucial decision for Home Depot to not see Lowe's as their primary rival or as their primary competitor, but to see the internet, to see Amazon as their primary competitor, which I think was incredibly forward thinking then. And that shift, identifying Amazon as their chief competitor, fueled them to put significant resources and dollars into HomeDepot.com, which now, I mean, I'm sure they've got room to grow with their technology, but what they do on their app, the amount that they sell online is remarkable. The way that you can go on their app and look for the product, find the product, and it'll integrates with the store, tells you what bin number the product is, which finding something in Home Depot is incredibly difficult to do already. So that's so helpful. But having someone like that in our church who was an advocate for why we have to see technology different. I'll never forget, he said, this is what most people do, is they've got he said, those motorcycles with a little sidecar. He said, for most organizations, for most churches as well, but the church, the Sunday experience is the main car, and the online thing is always the sidecar. He says, if you think about it that way, you will never invest enough, move enough dollars that way, put it at your executive table, but you have to see it as an integral, crucial part for how you're going to reach people, how you're going to introduce Jesus to people, and how you're going to help people grow in their faith.
Yeah, I think one of the takeaways I've always remembered from Frank is that I think he said something like, what you know is yesterday, and you don't know today, and that you need to figure out how to actually get a handle on that. And I've always said that technology angle that he's taken where he's helping the person who's an outsider, you're not at Home Depot, go in and browse and understand completely what you want in Home Depot. Even though the purchase
That's
is
right.
not on HomeDepot.com, you're enabling the purchase in there. And I say that that analogy is so true for churches, because I think church
Totally.
websites right now, here's my rant right now, Clay. Church websites are basically a bait and switch to get you into a timeshare presentation inside the building. You don't actually
Wow.
serve the customer, right? The person who has questions about Jesus, about their faith, about any felt needs. They don't get to see the product. They don't get to understand. It's just a pointer to get into a
Hmm.
room on Sunday where you basically
For a
lock the doors,
timeshare pitch.
right? Turn off the lights. You can't
That's
talk for
good.
90 minutes, and then
That's right.
that's it. And so, yeah, that embracing of technology in that way is so critical. I love how you're
Yeah.
pointing it out. Okay, so now churches are embracing technologies in good ways, in positive ways. I
Yeah.
think 66% of churches now have some sort of mobile app experience. I know from the Pushpay report that there was a 44% increase year over year in terms of using the app to schedule volunteers. Wow, that's amazing. I think that helps our volunteers put their faith into action because there's less friction that way. Even using the app for prayer requests, I think, has grown significantly since the last couple of years. What are your thoughts on technology in terms of how can it enhance community engagements? How do you get out of the way of this admin and on the operational side? Are there other areas that are missing that you see as big opportunities? Again, from your point of view in that leadership role, what's missing? Like where are church leaders actually not using technology where they should be?
Well, yeah, if you don't, some of you may be hearing us discuss this Pushpay 2024 State of Church Technology Report, and maybe that's news to you or foreign to you. I would
Yeah.
say you certainly need to go download it
Yeah.
and go read it. It won't take you that long. They've done a really great job summarizing it. But I love the ones that you pointed out, that yes, most churches have a mobile app. Yes, most churches are scheduling, or at least almost half are scheduling volunteers through technology. Again, your first question, Kenny, right out the gate was, how are we leveraging technology to be additive, to
Yeah.
make things easier and not to take time away from us? But the other one that you had listed was how many churches are the increase in churches using their app for prayer requests,
Yeah.
which I think that is tremendous. Their report said that that's increased 8% since
Yeah.
2022. So just in the last couple of years, it's increased by almost 10%. That most churches are using their apps for prayer requests. I think to me, that's the part that gets me excited. Is all of the opportunities that we have outside of the time when we can connect with people in person, face to face for that 1 hour. I see it so much with middle school, high school small groups, right? Where the life of the small group does not just happen on Sunday in the environment. The life of the small group happens on the app, whether
Yeah.
it's GroupMe or whether it's whatever chat app that they're using. That's where the life of the group happens. That's where we really get to exchange ideas, discuss what we're learning, talk about what God's teaching us, but also talk about what's going on in our life, both for positive and the things that are hard. And any leader, any volunteer leader knows this, because they're going, yeah, we're leveraging technology to help us minister, lead, invest in the next generation better. And I just think, whether it's prayer requests, whether it's connecting with your group, I think churches that see that see the power in that technology, that see the power in, oh, we can now connect with people in ways that we never could have before. We can connect with more people, and we can connect with people more. I think it's there's just a lot of hope. There's a lot of hope in how we're going to continue to leverage technology to be able to do what God has asked us to do, which is to help disciple people.
Yeah. Now let's talk about AI, because if anyone's been following me or Church Tech Today, we know that AI is here. Pushpay's report says 33% of churches say that AI will be strategically important in the next 2 to 3 years in the future. We know from the Church Tech Today Exponential AI Next report that we did, we saw that 87% of church leaders are for using AI in ministry. Only 13% are like, ixnay, I don't want to use AI ever in ministry. So the clear majority see the potential of AI in ministry. Specifically for the leaders that are preparing sermons. Tends to be one of those places it's a hot button, right? Like it's people their objections to using AI for sermon prep. Most of the times that I'm crisscrossing the country. I think I've spoken at 18 different events this year, trying to educate church leaders and pastors on AI. And this is the number one objection that comes up. You should not be using AI for sermons. But I think there's a proper way to do that, and I want to get to that. But I think the question I have is, how can you make a compelling pitch to the pastor that's here listening today that they need to do that? Because if you're spending 15 hours a week on sermon prep, like, I think that's part of the identity of the pastor. How do you affect that conversation so that someone sees that in a different light, Clay? Like, I think this is one of the things that's a big thing for me. Like, that's a big rock in a pastor's schedule during the week. And it's recurring
Yeah.
every single week, right? Up to 50 weeks a year, pretty much. You're talking about 10, 15, maybe 20 hours a week. How do we shift that conversation, or how do you reframe it? What's been helpful for you?
Yeah, one of the things that has been most helpful for me when it comes to AI is I'm 44. I hired a guy to do some work for me
Hmm.
about 3 or 4 years ago. At the time, he was 28, 29. So we've now become good friends. I see him as a mentor. That seems bizarre, but I feel like it is reverse mentoring.
Yeah.
I have learned more from him than it seems that he has learned from me. And he has helped translate the future of the world. Being 44, I'm right on the edge of Gen X and being a millennial. So I remember life without the internet. That's to me, one of the marks of a Gen Xer is that you can remember a time when you didn't just come home and get online. So for me, Evan has been just tremendous. Evan's this person I'm referring to is his name. And Evan and I, the more I started using ChatGPT specifically because of Evan, the more I started going, wow, this is so helpful for pastors, or it's been so helpful for me. And so Evan had the idea one day, well, let's help pastors learn how to use it, because this would have been probably about a year and a half ago when we started doing this, and there was still a significant barrier to entry, or just an ignorance on how easy it actually is to use. And so we threw it out there. Hey, we're doing a workshop. We called it sermonprep.ai. You can still go to the website and sign up for the next workshop. But we put it on social media, and the amount, I think those 13% that you referred to that are still that have a problem with it, they were very vocal. And Evan, being more mature and more kind for me, I just got all mad and upset about it. But he said, hey, let's jump on a call with one of these people that's upset and try to learn from them, which I was like, that does feel like what Christ would do. I like that. So we did. And I'll never forget, we get on the phone with this pastor who's in a fairly rural area of the United States. And he's working tremendously hard at being a pastor. I mean, you could tell, just very diligent, very earnest, and spending a lot of time preparing for sermons. And at the end of the day, or at the end of the call at least, when we finally kind of were able to boil it down, what is he so upset about? Why does this make him so? Because he was furious, Kenny. I mean, like furious that we would be encouraging pastors to do this. He felt like we were teaching people how to cheat.
Yeah.
We were doing something so unethical that it would be akin to teaching someone how to cheat in life, that we were giving them not a cheat code in a helpful way, but giving them a cheat code in an unethical or immoral kind of way. And I think it was because of how earnest and diligent he was in his own preparation. And so I think I would just start with that to go, hey, what we're not doing, I know you refer to AI as your intern, right? You'd never have your intern write your sermon and then you'd go read it, right? That wouldn't feel right. And it wouldn't be good either. In the same way, we teach people, hey, think of it as an intern. Think of it as someone that you're paying to help you do some research. Think of it as someone who's helping you get out of writer's block. Learn how to prime the pump. Learn how to write your prompts in such a way that it's really learning you. How do you upload some of your past sermons so it sees the way that you write sermons in the future? But the amount of time that it has saved me, I feel like that is it's the line we use is, how do we help people prepare more efficiently so they can pastor more effectively? How do we help them prepare more efficiently so they can pastor more effectively? Because yeah, you're right. If you're spending 15 hours a week doing this, imagine if you were only spending 10, what could you do with those other
Yeah.
5? Maybe you take your wife out to dinner, or maybe you take your 5 donors or 5 biggest donors to your church out to dinner and continue to foster, build that relationship. Maybe you meet with 5 new families in your church who just, or 5 new people who showed up to your church recently. But there's a lot that you could do to pastor more effectively if you could learn how to prepare more efficiently. So yes, I do. I am aware of the pushback, but I just think I think there. Don't you think there's going to come a time where that 87% is going to become 97%, and we're going to go, wait, you don't use it? In this, it would be like saying you don't use Google to help you
Yeah.
prepare for sermons, right?
I think, I mean, I guess the objection handler that I use is, if you are a senior leader and you need to hire someone for your team and you get 2 separate resumes, same exact background, same exact skill sets, they're both rock stars, but one at the bottom of the resume says they're fully fluent in fully fluent in Google and the internet, and the other one says, I abstain from using all Google tools and all internet tools. I refuse to use Google. They're both great. They both are theologically sound. They both have great pastoral care backgrounds. But one refuses to use Google and the internet, and the one doesn't. Which one would you use? And it's a black and white, right? It's absolutely, that's 100% and 0% decision. And that really is, I think within the next 12 to 24 months, it's going to be
I
like
agree.
that with AI, right? Like it's definitely going to be like that. Like I just came back from the AI Summit in New York, Jacob Javits Center,
Mm.
huge convention center, marketplace conference. And I will tell you the things that are coming down the pike. If you thought we're in a whirlwind now, it's you got to buckle your seatbelts. And this week, Apple, right? It just literally this week came out and says, "Hey, look, Siri's now being upgraded with
Mm.
ChatGPT." And so, as all these consumer devices are popularizing and normalizing AI use, I think it's going to be foregone conclusion at this point.
Kenny, the person that sold me on it the most was one of our first workshops. We had a church planter from Boston.
Mhm.
And at the end, we just kind of open it up to, hey, is anybody else using this in ways that you never would have thought or that would be
Mhm.
encouraging to the community that we have here? And this church planter from Boston, the way he sold it and said, I can't hire a communications person, but this in an hour does for me what a 20-hour a week communications person, I would be foolish to not use it. That it would be silly for me that instead of paying somebody to run our groups and also spend time writing group questions, why do I not just let this do it when it can do it so easily and so effectively? So to hear a church planner who, it's a little bit of like a rich person thing to say, no, I need to spend 20 hours a week preparing for
Yeah,
most pastors around the world don't have that luxury.
yeah,
We have so many bivocational ones, so many that are church planning and doing all the jobs. I mean, they're mowing the yard and also printing the bulletins and leading the songs on Sunday, right? And I think it feels like a little bit of like a rich person complaint to say, no, I don't like it. I should be the one spending 20 hours a week when
yeah.
most people don't actually have that luxury to be able to do that.
Well, I think that's a good challenge. As we close out this conversation, I would just ask you, what's the one thing that you can tell a pastor today? Like, what's the one practical step they get off of this podcast? What should they actually be doing? Like, is it they're supposed to enroll in a AI certificate or a degree course? Like, what literally is the next thing you think a pastor should be doing listening here today?
This is what has helped me the most with it is just spending time with it. But I would encourage you to do this. The next hard conversation you have, whether it's you got to fire a volunteer, which as a pastor, that's one of the most difficult conversations. We're not even paying you to give your time, and we're saying we don't even want you to do that, right? If you have to fire a volunteer, if you have to have a hard conversation with a staff person, I would go leverage your local LLM. For me, ChatGPT is the easiest one for me to use, or the one that I use most commonly. I would take that hard conversation and just say, hey, what am I not thinking about? Help me, put me in the position of the way the other person is thinking. Here's what I got to tell them. Here's the situation. Here's some context. I'm going to prime the pump. And then just ask, what do I need to know? What am I not thinking about? And just see if it's helpful. And I cannot imagine that it will not be helpful. And I would say start there. But if you think I can't start with a sermon, well, go start with the conversation. We got to fire an employee or fire a volunteer, or you got to have a hard conversation with the worship leader because you don't like the fact that he's wearing a hat or whatever. I don't know what it may be. Whatever the thing is, just take that hard conversation to it and just see what happens. And if it's helpful, I think what you might it might be a little eye-opening for you. But that's been one of the most surprising places that it's been helpful for me, are some of those counseling, some of those hard relational situations. To have something that is so emotionally in tune, that is also so objective, it is a little scary, but I do think it's extremely helpful. It's an extremely helpful resource for pastors.
I second that recommendation. That is just one of the sweet spots, I think, of these chatbots, is to be almost like a coach or a sounding board.
Coach,
really help you. Yeah, absolutely. Well, Clay, thank you so much. Let's finish out this conversation with some fun on a light note. Lightning round of questions for you from the CTT staff here. And the first one is, this is a controversial one: paper books or Kindle? Which one is it?
If I had like one moment to read a book, it would be the paper book. But because I travel some, I love traveling light, I would say Kindle.
Kindle.
Can I offer one lightning to you?
Yeah.
If you listen to a book on Audible, can you say you read it?
That's the big question. I say yes.
I do too.
I'm wondering, so there was a question in my mind at some point that says, if I listen to an audiobook, and many times I actually buy the paper book afterwards because it's so good. And are those the ones that I consider read? And that's, I don't know, but yes, I think in general we need another word. Maybe, Clay, we're waiting for you to.
Yeah, I consumed that book. I consumed it. I don't know. Anyway, all right.
Okay, next one. For church work, what's the right answer? There's only one: Mac or PC.
I mean, I don't think I've ever used a PC, hardly. So
Okay.
I come from a group of Macs.
That's an easy one. Okay, here's a great one. What's the most awkward moment you've had where the mic was not muted?
I think it's singing for me. I think I love to sing, and I'm a marginal at best singer. So I think it's being side stage and just singing my guts out, not realizing that my mic is hot. So hot.
Maybe
those are the worst moments for me.
Is the general rule Clay's singing should be just left for the karaoke bars,
The
and
car,
that's it?
yeah, the car with no one in it but me. Yes.
Okay, and last one is, what's the last non-work related thing that you've used AI for? Is there any fun, interesting use cases that you've used it recently?
Yeah, our family went to for Thanksgiving. We went up to the Northeast. We live in Atlanta, and my wife's brother lives in Massachusetts. And so we were going up to visit him. We stopped for a couple days in New York. My wife and I have 5 kids. Our youngest child was turning 7 while we were going to be in New York. The itinerary that it helped me come up with, the 2-day itinerary while we were in New York City. I mean, I've been in New York just as an adult, maybe 3 or 4 times, only a handful. I mean, not a ton. My wife's been there 3 or 4 times, but none of our kids had ever been. And it helped build just a fantastic, I mean, we used probably 70% of the itinerary that it gave us, but it gave me some ideas. It gave me some thoughts. It even took into consideration his age and his birthday. It gave me without even me asking, gave me some fun ideas that we could do for his birthday. So that was the one that I was like, oh, wow, I wouldn't even have thought to use it in this way.
I love it. Well, thank you so much for stopping by today. I know you're
Kenny,
really
thank
busy.
you.
For people that want to get more of your leadership insights, either going to clayscroggins.com or picking up one of your books, what is the best way to actually stay tuned to all the things that you're publishing and teaching about leadership and all the other topics you're in?
Yeah, that's it. I do a weekly newsletter that goes out to, I don't know how many the latest count, but it's somewhere between 13,000, 14,000 readers. But I would also just say my email address is clay.scroggins@gmail.com. So if there's anything that I can ever do, my purpose on earth, I have found, is to serve leaders like the ones that listen to this podcast. So you're welcome to get in touch with me directly. LinkedIn, clayscroggins.com. The books are available on Amazon. All that is true, but that's not news to anyone. Everybody knows all of that anyway. But There you go. Clay Scroggins, clay.scroggins@gmail.com.
I love it. Love it how accessible you are to leaders everywhere. Thank you so much for listening. Hey,
thanks, Kenny.
Everybody here, do me a favor and give us some feedback on some of the things, what resonated with you most during this conversation, and also what are the things that are the secondary level of questions that this has triggered. We'll follow up and actually use that as fodder for further conversations, for articles, for podcast episodes, etc. All of this content happens because of what you want and need in your journey for your church and your ministry today. I'm Kenny Jahng. Thank you so much for listening to us on the Church Tech Today podcast.